Namaste. Building a team helps you grow your business faster. But how can you hire people when trust isn't something that comes easily to you? Well, stick around because we're going to explore trust issues and team building in this episode of Live, Love, Engage. So, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. I am Gloria Grace, the Light Messenger and Holistic Business Guide. And this topic is truly near and dear to my heart because I am someone who has had her own trust issues as an entrepreneur, and in particular because of how I grew up, which we'll get into in a little bit. But first, let's just talk about this a little bit more. Let's talk about this concept of having a team, really building a business. It's even if you start off as a solopreneur, eventually you got to have help. It really does. So, they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, guess what? Your business is your baby, and it takes a village to raise your business as well, to grow it and have it be that flourishing entity that you envisioned when you started it. And if you try to do everything by yourself, eventually you're going to come to a breaking point because number one, there's only 24 hours in a day, and you have to sleep sometimes. You have to have a family life or friends. You've got to be able to do something fun once in a while. Self care, big, big component of being able to be a successful business owner. So if you're not getting the help you need, you're going to burn out and you're going to wind up getting sick and not able to run your business at all. And within a couple years of starting my business, and it should have been really even sooner than that, I realized that if I wanted to be able to serve my clients better, number one, I couldn't spend all my time on marketing, on social media in particular. And so I bit the bullet, even though I really didn't want to, for a variety of reasons. And again, we'll kind of go into those more in a second. But I hired a virtual assistant to help me out. And it was a disaster, I have to tell you. We did not mesh well at all. She didn't understand what I needed. And in retrospect and looking back on it, especially when it came time for me to hire somebody else, I realized it was because of me. I, number one, didn't trust her enough to communicate effectively with her. I didn't tell her what I needed. I didn't set expectations for how this relationship should go on. And it isn't any wonder why I was unhappy with the way she communicated with me. And rather than trying to fix it, I wound up just letting her go. I think after not that long, maybe we worked together a month or something, and I just gave up and started doing everything all myself again. Until later on, I finally got wise. So let's talk about this a little bit more about let's go deeper here into trust. Why trust is such a key component in this. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to have more than one employee, whether they're part-time or not, or full-time, when your employees feel safe to take risks, express themselves freely, they're going to be able to have the capacity to innovate and really help your business grow. In fact, it's been shown that they're going to get tasks done a lot easier because they're also going to feel more likely to collaborate with each other, or certainly to communicate either with each other or with you as the business owner. And everything is going to be a much more productive process for your business. And on the flip side, if you are not instilling that trust in your employees, then You're liable to have high turnover. You're certainly not gonna have very good morale with the people who are working for you, and again, then you're gonna have reduced productivity, and that's not what you want when you're running your business. Now, I hinted at the beginning a little bit about why I uniquely had a particular problem with trust and being able to build a team. And that is because I grew up in an alcoholic household. My dad was an alcoholic. And if you experience this yourself, or if you know someone who has, grew up with one or two alcoholic parents, then you may very well realize that it's can be a scary situation, mostly because in my case, I never quite knew how my dad was going to be from day to day. Was he going to be sober for a while, or was he going to go on a bender and start being drunk? And I remember this especially like when I was especially as I was getting older, maybe in middle school and certainly high school. And I think especially middle school, because I remember having conversations with a dear friend of mine that it was scary to be able to come home from school and not know what to expect. And because of that, then my parents had a tough relationship as well, because my mom didn't like him drinking, and they were constantly fighting. And again, it's like as a kid, when you are hearing that kind of conflict and you're afraid, well, guess what happens? You start to have real trust issues yourself because you're afraid. And so consequently, what happens is you wind up wanting to control everything in your life that you can because of that. And it can lead to perfectionism. In fact, I just started reading a book today or yesterday called Perfect Daughters. And it's about adult women who are children of alcoholics, and how I'm not sure, because I just seriously just started the book yesterday, but I was really struck by the title of it, because I do remember as a kid wanting to be the perfect daughter in the family. Especially I had older siblings, and they were always getting in trouble with mom and whatnot. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to get good grades in school. I'm not going to make waves. I'm going to be the good kid. And let me tell you, that is a stressful way to go as well. And as a result, as an adult, it didn't show up so much when I was working when I used to work in television, when I worked for the nightly business report on public television. But when I started my own business, yeah, that's when it started raising its ugly head, because again, there was this fear I had of, if I delegate, can somebody really do this job as well as I can? I've got to do it perfect. And what if they don't do it perfect? And then and actually about that, if they don't do it perfectly, what am I going to do about it? Because again, I was witnessing conflict in my household as a kid. And so as I grew up, I wanted to make sure that there was no conflict in my life, and I would try to please everyone, become a people pleaser. That's another aspect of it. And so I didn't like conflict. So if I was going to hire someone, as I mentioned, I hired this first VA, I didn't want to I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Instead of worrying about my own business and saying, "Hey, we need to fix this," I'm like concerned about her instead of me. This is the trap that you can get into. And I'll tell you, I also feel that, I mean, with growing up in that type of a household, it gets heightened, but it's not unique, because I think women in general, women entrepreneurs, we do struggle with some of these same things. And some of the barriers to trust stems from having a lack of confidence in ourselves. And also, because business has sort of traditionally been this man's world, we start to feel like we need to act like a man, and we don't rely on our own intuition, which is one of the things that as women, we are much more likely to pay attention to than men, thankfully, because men are really told to stuff their feelings and not rely on that. But as women, we are more inclined to trust it. So when we start a business, we start thinking, well, no, I've got to be, strong and not necessarily focus in on the gifts that our creator gave us. So how do we fix this a little bit? How can we cultivate trust in our team to be able to grow our business? Well, for one thing, it starts with trusting ourselves. It really does. It starts with building our own self-confidence, being able to realize that we start this business for a reason. And if we truly believe in what we're selling and the wonderful benefits that it's going to provide our clients, then we need to really get over ourselves, is what I'm thinking. But one of the lessons I had to learn, and again, this really goes with trust, is learning to reach out and ask for help. And especially if you struggle with trust, this is going to be a challenge, or it could be a challenge for you. I'm not going to say it will. I'm going to say it could be a challenge for you. And I know it was for me. So take baby steps. Practice with somebody safe. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's somebody in your family that you do trust, and see where you can ask them for help. And to give you an example, I was working with a coach several years ago, and he gave me a really great exercise to try at home. And this was to let my family know that I was going to spend like the whole evening, was that I wasn't going to do anything for myself, that I was going to have to ask them to do things for me. So if I was sitting on the couch watching TV and I got thirsty, rather than getting up off the couch and go getting myself a glass of water, I would have to ask my husband or ask my daughter to say, hey, while you're in the kitchen, can you get me a glass of water, please? Doing those little simple exercises was really empowering because it helped me to practice, helped me to strengthen this muscle of asking for help and trusting that they would would take care of me, basically, would do what I asked, essentially. And so if you're going to have employees, you've got to be able to develop that trust with them as well. And and some of this comes down to, again, learning how to be a leader. And I've talked about leadership on the show before, and in fact, I'm going to have in the show notes some episodes, links to some episodes, previous episodes, if you, especially if you're a new person, and you can check those out and get some really good. I've had some good experts on the show, as well as my own uh, tips on how to be a good leader. But get educated, read books. There's tons of books on leadership that you can learn from, and also get to know yourself. And one of the things that I recommend to my clients, and I've talked about on this podcast before, is to spend time in meditation, to spend time journaling, because those two activities can really help you to get in touch with your higher self. And as you get more comfortable listening to your intuition, learning how to trust yourself, well, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to trust others. Now let's say you're getting this and you're getting ready to start reaching out and saying, "Okay, I need to start getting help in my business. I'm ready to hire someone. How do I go about it?" Well, again, there's lots of tips that you can find online. I'm just going to give you a little cheat sheet about what to do, just listing a few things here. So number 1, you've got to get clear on what it is that you need help with. So you've got to come up with an accurate job description. And my advice in doing that is to figure out, number 1, what it is you need help with. And if this is something that you've been doing consistently, make a list of all of the steps it takes to do what you're doing so that you can see that, because that is going to make it easier for you to then to train the person. And you can do this in a variety of ways. I mean, today we've got technology that allows us to do a video screen capture. So you can actually, rather than having to sit down and write stuff down old school, you could actually, especially if it's something you do online, you could create a video and that'll make it easier for them to see. And then when you get to the hiring process, well, even before that, when you get to actually say you're placing an ad on one of the services like Upwork or something, where you're looking for a virtual assistant, or if you're looking to hire someone, wherever you're placing an ad, maybe it's even on LinkedIn, give clear instructions to follow when someone is applying, because this is going to be your first indication to see how well they pay attention to what you put in there, the instructions that you've said. So if you have someone, let's say you wanted them to do XYZ and they respond to your ad and they've only done X, well, then you can say, I don't think I necessarily want to hire this person since they weren't careful enough to follow all of my instructions. But if you do find someone who did XYZ, well, then you can move on to the next phase, which is conducting an interview and ask targeted questions and see if they provide references. You're going to want to check with those references and maybe even do some other assessments. So, one other thing to be clear about as you go through this process is to focus on your values. Know what are your values that you hold dear in your business, and then make sure that that candidate aligns with them. So again, this could go down to asking questions. Maybe you value strong communication, or maybe you value punctuality, or whatever it is, whatever those values are. Make sure that the candidate understands those. And then ultimately, when it boils down to, let's say you've got 2 candidates that look the same on paper, you've talked to them, they both sound wonderful, but your budget only allows for you to hire one of them, then you're just gonna have to go with your gut and trust your intuition and take a leap of faith and understand that they may or may not work out. And if they don't work out, guess what? It's not the end of the world. You can thank them for their time and say, well, first off, you could maybe see if they're open to constructive criticism, and maybe there's a way to fix the relationship. And then if not, then you just say, hey, this isn't working out. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, but we're going to have to part ways, and then look for someone else. And one other key point to remember is that communication is key for this. It really is. So when you're hiring someone, as you're building this team, you need to number 1, decide what's the best way for them to communicate with you, and have them respect that. And then conversely, it could be finding out what's the best ways that they want to be able to have communications from you. Hopefully it's the same. So whether that's email, whether it's text, whether it's Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, maybe even old school using a phone, find out and lay all that out so that you keep those communication lines open. And remember, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. The best team members are gonna be people who are really experts in an area perhaps that you're not so strong in. So be open to asking them questions. If you're confused about how they're doing something, for instance, or you're well, whatever. Just be sure that you're asking them questions and let them know that you always want to keep the lines of communication open. So I think that's about it. I think those are the key things. So it really trust is vital, but it starts with yourself. So you've got to cultivate self-trust, being able to know that you've got this, you can do this. And if you need to practice or you need education to get there, fine. And it might even be that you need to hire a coach. There are actually specific, I think, leadership coaches out there, but certainly even a life coach or a business coach can help you to learn how to trust yourself. And that's something that I would love to be able to help you with as well. I can definitely do that. I through the love method that I wrote about in my book, I have been able to have so much better results for myself at being able to trust myself. I mean, I was able to ask my husband for a divorce and we wound up separating last year, and that took a big act of trust in myself and confidence to do that. And I don't regret it for a second. So you've got to look after yourself no matter what, because the team starts with you. You've got to be the leader and you've got to be able to demonstrate that you have faith in your employees and to be able to encourage them and nourish them. But you've also got to start with doing that to yourself first. So if you would ever want to chat with me, I would be happy to talk with you for sure. See if I can point you in the right direction, whether we work together or not. It doesn't matter. I offer a free 20-minute power call. So you can go to engagewithgloria.com. That's engagewithgloria.com to schedule a call. And I would love to be able to chat with you and give you some more suggestions. I can maybe go into more detail than I was able to do on the podcast today. Now, one of the tools that I have used to help me, and one of the things I do work with my clients to release some of this old baggage, emotional baggage that we carry, especially if you happen to be a daughter or son of an alcoholic, is light language. And light language is a wonderful sound healing modality. It is something that I am able to transmit through my voice, and it comes through in the spoken word or through song. And it is something that I'm able to channel to bring through from higher dimensions, from higher realms, angelic realms, galactic realms, my higher self, God, spirit, universe, what have you. And it's something that your brain doesn't necessarily understand, but it's something that your heart and your soul do. And it's a truly, truly healing modality. It helps you to be able to feel more calm and centered, and with repeated sessions, it fosters that strengthening of your intuition because you're connecting to source. And it's really a language. It's called light language, but to me, I almost want to change it to say it's love language because that's what it is. It's a language of love. It's that energy that we are all made of. We are all made of this spark of the divine, which is love. So what I would love to do for you right now is to share some of that with you. And what I'm going to do is set the intention today that the message that comes through will help you release any issues with trust that you may have. And if not, that it will just help you in whatever way you need so that it will be for your soul's highest good. So if you're listening to this podcast somewhere where you're driving, I would encourage you to pause it and come back later when you can have a chance to be sitting down. You can get grounded. I would even encourage you to close your eyes. And in fact, let's do that now. Let's first start by just taking a deep breath, letting it out, and just set an intention for yourself that whatever I'm about to share is going to be for your soul's highest good. Kukia no kaleta kino toku aniku sakoya no kaye ona kikalian no kuhe kosho no koyo ekane sato heko kasha no ka kasha no kuihati soshika no ekaya no kuka honso shonaki he koya no kopa he sa koya da kuke ya shokoba hana kriata kusha kana kriata kikaria asako shun no kriata to kushi manakia heka no kupa ya to kusha na kriata te apa Oshoku shin no krieta tanchi yo no kuya papa on no kriya to kuya to kuwa nakia kanakia toa sako shana hika o sako shan no kuhe nakuya to sa shon no kuye eko shoto kuya papa ingako hanno kuriyan poshin no kuya patakiyata onno kushia to kuma mana hekanian no kuyata hashakotokiyata. Oh, thank you for listening. I hope you received some benefit out of that. If nothing else, that you feel a little more relaxed and at ease, and knowing that you can trust yourself, to succeed in whatever endeavor you're involved in. But especially if you are a business owner, to know that you've got this. You really do. You've got this. You have the ability to trust yourself and to trust the people that you have working for you. So I so blessed to have you watching today and listening on your favorite podcast platform. I am so grateful that you are here. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet or to subscribe on my YouTube channel, I encourage you to do that. And especially on YouTube, make sure that you ring the bell so that you will be notified when any new episodes come out, as well as any other videos that I am wanting to share with you, I'm able to do. And my YouTube channel is at Gloria Grace Rand. And I think that's going to do it for today. So until next time, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.